Hey, hey!
Hey, hey! Hey, happy Wednesday. We're so happy to be back with you again today. How's it
It's
going today, love?
beautiful out today. It's sunshiny in southern Florida, and
And we're digging it.
we are.
Man, life has been crazy, hasn't it?
It has been very
I
busy.
mean, legit. We've had, I think, one day off in over a month now,
Yeah.
legitimately. And it's something, to be honest with you, we really try to. Um,
Good morning, Eric. Thanks for joining us.
it's something that we try to manage for. It's something that we try to make sure that we protect our Sabbath. But we just are in one of those seasons where there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of work to be done. And to be honest with you, we've been just jumping through ourselves. We've actually got clients here right now
We
doing
do. We got them doing a fun
marriage
marriage
retreat.
exercise right now so that we could spend a little bit of time with you. Want to give a shout out to Peggy, Eric, Lillian. Hey, give us a quick shout out. Let us know that you're watching, what you're learning in your life, and where you're listening from.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking with you a little bit today, other than just the chaos of our life.
Please pray for us.
Yeah, no, it's all good, legit though. But it's pertinent, and I think all of us have different seasons like that, and you guys may be in a season like that as well. And so, there's a lot of different moving parts. It seems like the world's gone mad. I've tried to remind people a few times, and even remind myself, that it's not as mad as it appears. Honestly,
Right.
Those of us who know the truth just need to make sure that we're speaking the truth, that we're speaking the truth in love, that we're practicing not being offendable, and that we're just leading with love first. I think is just so much the important thing. And for us, again, this is boomerangs. It always circles back into the family and the relation of the family relationship and such. And so, we've been in a series talking with y'all a little bit, just some practical application of things that we do and things that we're learning even now, or things that we've learned over the years about how to foster a healthy relationship. In all times, in times of pandemics, in times of rioting and craziness, whether that be externally or inside the home, and just again, kind of drawing us back to some of the basic principles that have made a difference and continue to make a difference for us and other people and other couples that we've worked with.
Yep.
So, what's your initial thought, God?
I hope I'm not God.
Julie.
We're in a whole lot of trouble.
Julie, what's your God-inspired thoughts as we
Yeah,
kick this off today, love?
Yeah, so one thing I think is really good is for all of us just to truly pause.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on in your world, thanks for tuning in right now, for listening in to how you can better your relationship, because the truth is, we impact our culture, we impact our communities when we get it right in the four walls of our home.
That's a great point.
And so for us, we've been doing this series on how do we build lasting love? How do we have connection? How do we foster a thriving environment and not just merely survive our marriage relationship? And so the same principles are applicable in any relationship, but it does begin in the home. And so we've been reading out of 1 Corinthians 13, where love is patient, love is kind, it is not jealous, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, right? Love doesn't delight in evil, but is pleased with the truth. It always, and today we're picking up on verse 7, where it says, love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And I love that thought, because I know when we first married, coming from a broken family, so for those of you that are just learning about us and connecting for the first time, I grew up in a family where every abuse was present. So physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. My trust was violated. My hope in humanity was violated from the very onset of my early childhood. And so I brought a lot of baggage into our relationship, and truthfully,
Boy, isn't that the truth?
I always wanted to trust you, and I remember even adamantly declaring, I trust you, but I didn't. I wanted to, I tried to, but in the heart of who I was, I didn't know how to. And I remember the invitation that God gave, and the invitation was simply, Julie, would you entrust Greg to me? And it was a beautiful invitation, because there was hope for me in that. Because who I did trust was God. I did believe in him. I knew that I could trust him. And so what he was asking me to do was to trust you to him. And when I did that, the beautiful exchange that took place was that not only did I trust God, and not only did I trust him to take care of what needed to be taken care of in you, but I began to be able to get my own healing, and in the process began to build my trust in who you were. I could take you at your word because I knew ultimately there was an account that God would take care of for me. And not to get even, but that his heart was for me, and it helped me to see that your heart was for me.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said when we're talking about trust in general, and certainly if we're talking about trusting our mate and or trusting God. It's a big step, and I think it takes practice. And I think for me, trusting God, if you will, it's easy for me to trust. It's easy for me to trust, period, in my head. It's a whole nother thing to trust it really, truly, like completely, like in my heart, you know? And I think there's a lot of power in pausing in whatever situation you're in right now, whatever it is that's preoccupying your mind, whether it be in the temporal sense, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your finances, whether it's in where you're going to live next, if it's a concern with your kids. And again, circling back from all of the uncertainties, one of the things that we started this series with is, first of all, what do you know? And then secondly, quieting your spirit, quieting yourself and your mind enough to choose to trust. And if you're a Christian, to trust God, specifically, to trust God for your kids' well-being, for your spouse and whatever you might be dealing with there. And, you know, again, it's one of those simple truths that are not necessarily easy truths, right? And so I just want to encourage you. I know you might be thinking, like we all do so many times, yeah, I know that, I get that, tell me something I don't know.
Right.
But again, the application of really, I think here in America especially, I know we got people watching from all over the world, but I think all over the world actually, we're so busy and preoccupied in our minds that I think, you know, it's good just to be reminded of what it is, just to be quiet and to allow our spirit to be refreshed and be renewed. I think that's where we get confidence and where we get the heart application of trust, of the process we're in, of God, and even of one another. And it is a choice, by the way. It's not a feeling per se. I think that trust truly is something that we choose to lean into or not. Is that fair?
Yeah, and what's great is as we make that choice, that there's something that's beautiful about that. It's powerful because when you can't change how you feel, you can change the way you think. And so if you catch yourself feeling in a place that is vulnerable or afraid, in your mind you can make the shift and just simply say, I choose to trust you. I choose to take you at your word.
And I think sometimes, I don't know, I can remember in our relationship there was a point where I was trying so hard to help Julie feel my love. And you probably articulate this better of your mindset during that time period. You know, it was you were skeptical.
I always thought he had an alternative motive. If he did something nice for me, it was because he felt guilty about something else. It was like you were in a no-win situation because, you know, and we had a volatile beginning. And so there was all these reasons in my mind that I could figure out why he didn't really feel or mean what he was saying that he
or have a pure motive in whatever it is that I might have been doing. And I don't say that because I'm trying to point ugly on Julie or anything, but you know, we deal with a lot of couples. You know, we coach a lot of couples on any given week, in fact. And we come across this, and so often we prejudge one another's motives. And when we step into that area, I mean, if you want to learn how to tear your relationship apart and how not to foster a healthy relationship, that's step one, you know. Question your spouse's motives. Question everybody's motives. As you do that, what happens is you just absolutely fan the flame of skepticism and cynicism. And as those things become more and more predominant within our relationship, they just absolutely kill any opportunity. I was screaming I love you in every way that I knew possible at the time, and she I loved her with everything in me. I just didn't know how to make her feel it, And part of that was up to me, but a lot of it was also up to you. So I wonder if your spouse or the people in your life are trying desperately, to, maybe even God is trying desperately to help you feel how much he loves you,
I think it comes from, too, I love how 1 Corinthians 13 kind of ties the verse together. It says, love always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And I think it's interesting that God would put that whole sentence together because to trust means we have to have hope. Like they're tied, they're united together. I have to have the hope that if I love you, if I give my love, if I choose to trust you, that
trust and hope are kind of
they're synonymous, like they're tied together.
They're very relative to one another, for sure.
Right,
like you're saying.
Like I have to hope that you're not going to hurt me. I have to hope that you're going to reciprocate my love. I have to make sure that hope inspires me, in a sense, to be vulnerable and just simply take you at your word. And what's beautiful about that is that when we choose to and we maintain that hope, the rest of it is ultimately on the other person, and then we just get to be the recipient of what we believe to be good, noble, of a good report. And so that's what I choose to reflect on. And in the early days for us, when I had to choose to trust, it didn't come naturally. Now it comes natural. Up our power button.
It's all good.
Now it comes natural for me to trust you, easy for me to trust you. But at the time it was a choice. And so I would simply say thank you. Even if I didn't necessarily feel it, I said thank you. Or I received it and I made myself vulnerable to you.
Perfect. Good stuff. Last is love always perseveres, and then love never fails. That's just the final part of that passage, if you will, kind of the exclamation point that love never fails. And so that's a charge for us to never fail or falter in our love. It's a challenge, I mean, it really is to our spirit, I think. So let's move on to the next piece, baby doll. What else you?
Yeah, so perseverance, I think, when we come to that, we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to need to and extend grace to one another. So if you think about love never failing, love persevering, those two things tied together again, too. There's some practical things that we tried to do. What you had a thought?
Go ahead. You're good.
No, just what was the... what did we do to build trust? What did we do to begin to choose to persevere?
I think one of the first things is say what you mean and mean what you say, right? In other words, it's easy to get in these mind games in your marriage relationships, and honestly, even in relationships outwardly. I'm thinking about some of the current events that are going on in the world right now, and I think sometimes we just speak without thinking, and I think also we're manipulative in our speech. I think if we're honest, particularly with certain people within our life and our sphere, if you will, of close relationships, it's easy to kind of, I don't know, maybe make a jab or a snide remark, and the other person questions it, and, oh no, I didn't mean that. I was actually saying, when in reality it was a jab, or it was
actually I did mean to jab you. I was mad. Yeah.
And I just think that, again, honest communication. I mean, in marriage, one of the first things that people, one of the well-known kind of opportunities within marriage is good communications. And I think if we're playing head games with people, what we do is we dishonor them by not being forthright in what it is that we're actually saying. What happens when that happens is the other person begins to question themselves and wonder if they're even sane or not. Like literally, Julie has wondered, and I have wondered when we've done this to people, am I losing contact with reality?
Right.
Am I just out of my freaking mind? Because I know, by the way, did you know that, I think it's 87%, if I remember right, the statistic of our communication is nonverbal?
Wow. Yep.
You know?
Right. Yep.
So that means only 13% is what we say. The rest of it is how we say it, or our voice inflection, or our body language, and so on and so forth that goes around it. So our intuition is all too often. Now, this doesn't give us permission to, again, to question really what our spouse said or not, if you will, but it is our duty to make sure that, there's been times when I had to come back and say, okay, the reality is I was frustrated about this and this. This was on my mind, and I was an idiot, and I actually poked you intentionally.
And I'm sorry for that.
And I'm sorry for that. So no, you're not crazy. I actually was trying to razz you.
Yep.
And so I'm over it now. I'm moving on. I hope you'll let me.
Yep.
Fair?
Yep. I think, too, the one of the things we did early on is we chose, like we were talking about. And so it was like I've given you the benefit of the doubt. Like in my mind, if one side of my mind was saying that isn't because of this, this, and this, and a little interrogator and investigator that
you can always build a case for something.
Right,
if you try.
you're gonna find what you're looking for,
Yep.
And you can create anything. It's our perspective on life, and so I chose to take the perspective that, you know what, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. And if you've hung out with us any time at all, you know that our family motto is to see the best, believe the best, and speak the best. That came from that core time of being able to say, I'm going to see the best in you, believe the best about you, and I'm just going to speak the best. So it's like, thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate that. Really makes me feel good.
Yep.
And talking more functionally about my emotions versus emotional and trying to say, well, I was thinking this, and is this the truth? It's no, I just chose to believe the better. And speak that out, and spoke it very matter of fact versus out of this heightened emotion.
Yeah, which kind of brings us to another thought within that. I'm just remembering of some of the things that we've done over the years,
Yep.
and even some of the things that we encounter as we're coaching different couples, and that is communicating with respect and expressing vulnerability with the person that you're with. It takes practice to really be vulnerable, and again, I think this is a key underpinning to good communication and healthy communication. I lost my train of thought there, in case you couldn't tell.
That's all right.
But
that's all good. Yeah.
Proceed.
All right.
Please.
So the final part of love.
Bail me out, will you?
No. I wrote this down because our mentor John Maxwell wrote, "There's no achievement without failure." To even imply that might be possible gives people the wrong impression, right? So here's a better question. If your perception of and response to failure were changed, what would you attempt to achieve? And then he goes out to point out the differences between failing backward and failing forward. He talks about failing backwards, there's blame. Failing forward, you take responsibility. Failing backward, you repeat the same mistake. Failing forward, you learn from each mistake. Failing backwards, you're always expecting to never fail. But failing forward knows failure is just part of the process. And so what does all that have to do with love? Well, the truth is there's going to be times when mistakes are made, and we can either blame or we can learn from it. We can make those mistakes and say, oh, it's never ever going to get better. It's always going to be like this. Or we can just say, this is part of it. And so what can we learn from this, and how can we make sure that we don't revisit this? And if we do ever revisit, that we revisit it with new awareness.
Yeah, I think the temptation so often is when our spouse is off, when they stumble, when they have a bad day, when they're cranky, when they're having trouble navigating something in life. It's really easy if we're not careful to kick them while they're down. Point fault. You're blah blah blah, right? You know what I mean? Start throwing accusations and such. And I just want to encourage you. I want to remind you, that's the exact opposite. If there's any one place that our spouse should be able to be imperfect, if there's any one place that I should be allowed to be imperfect, if any place that Julie could be allowed to be imperfect, it should be within the home. It should be within our relationship. And when she falls, when she's weaker, when she's not at her best, it's important, I think, for me to make the choice to kind of pull her up, to encourage her, to remind her of who she really is, when she's at her best. And you know what? Listen, it takes some forethought. It takes a little bit of intentionality. It's not our intuition to do so. But we've learned over the years to make it much more of a habit. We still blow it sometimes, but as we really embrace this idea, it's become a lot more of a habit that when we're off, first of all, we communicate. Again, this is that communicating vulnerably and honestly that we were talking about a minute ago. Sometimes I look at Julie and I'm like, you know what? I'm a little bit off today and I need a little bit of grace. I don't know exactly what's going on. Sometimes she'll do the same thing. And what's cool is then it allows the other person to go, oh, okay, so they need a helping hand today. You know what I mean? They don't need me to kick them and be like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Or things of that nature. Fair?
Absolutely fair. You know, what's great too is when you begin to commit to trusting one another. Sometimes what we've been hearing and some of the responses coming in is a spouse that feels like they're doing it alone, that they're the only one who's doing that. And so as much as you can resist that and just simply do your part, what I truly believe is that if you continue to plant the right seeds, you will reap the harvest.
That's a good point.
According to Scripture.
Well, according to, just the principles of sowing and reaping, the bottom line is you can't continue to sow skepticism, and we can't continue to sow cynicism, hate, or destruction, disunity. We can't plant those seeds and expect to harvest love, unconditional love, forgiveness, grace, you know what I mean, encouragement. Like, you've got to plant the right seeds. And so again, I think sometimes it's cool just to boil life down to some basic, really simple principles like that.
Yeah.
And just ask ourselves and ask myself on any given day, what kind of seed am I dropping with the remark I just made? Or with the remark or the comment or the thing that I'm thinking right now? And is that one that I want to reap from? You know, the thing about the principles of sowing and reaping is that you always reap more of whatever it was you planted than what you planted. That's the reason we plant. Mm-hmm. That can work for us, or, it can work against us. So I want to encourage you again just to be cognizant. There's only one person in this world that you can change, and that's yourself. And if you're spending your time trying to build a great relationship by trying to change or save your spouse, you're doing the exact opposite. You're not fostering what it takes in order to build a great relationship. What it takes to build a great relationship is to change yourself to become the person that this person would love and would want to give more grace to, and so on and so forth, because it reciprocates.
Yeah. So we want to invite you into a challenge. I said because I just had this idea.
All right, break it.
All right, so this is fresh off the press, just a download. I want to challenge you. We want to challenge you to do this. Make a list of all the things that you desire in your mate. Now, sounds like opposite of everything that we just said, taking responsibility for yourself and all that, but just list out every quality that you would long to have in your relationship. Love, peace, words of affirmation, consideration, respect, whatever those qualities are that your spirit is longing for. Make a list of up to 30 different qualities. Once you have that list, here's where it comes in for you. Now look at that list and literally take that list, and for each day of the month, write in one quality on each of those days. On each of those days then, beginning with tomorrow, what you're going to do is you're going to take that and you're going to say, if you wanted words of affirmation, then take that word for that day and practice giving that to your spouse. Practice giving that to those people that are around your life. And in 30 days, I believe that we're going to be better, and we're going to have better relationships because of it, because of the intentionality. I will give words of respect, and we look for that as a practical application in our relationships.
Yeah, and it is the practical application, and here's the kicker, okay? To the person, for you, the one who thinks, man, I just don't always think that way in the heat of the moment, right? Or sometimes common sense eludes me in the moment. Or sometimes what seems so obvious outside of the moment is not so obvious inside of the moment. Let me talk to you for just a second as we wrap up. Here's the key to that. It's creating new habits. It starts with intentionality, and as you start with intentionality, and the regiment of practicing that intentionality, you form new neural pathways. You begin to think and ponder and do things differently than what you did before. And then, all of a sudden, your knee-jerk reaction changes. It becomes more of what you want. It becomes more of what does make more sense in the moment, rather than what doesn't. Instead of throwing gasoline on the fire, your new habits begin to take over and you work in your subconscious. Over 95% of all of our daily activities are subconscious. In other words, when we get ready to eat, we don't think, okay, I need to tricep, squeeze
Right.
my grip, contract my bicep to pull the fork to my face. You know what I mean? It's subconscious, it's automatic. And the rest of our actions, just like as we first start driving, it's very mechanical. These things may be very mechanical because after a while, what happens is they become our new normal. And they come to us more quickly and more easily in the heat of the moment or when we're faced with a challenge. And so everything begins with our thought, and then our thoughts create our habits. So if we begin to manage those things, I think that, again, our results begin to change as well. We've been at it for a few minutes, so
It's time. So hey, take the challenge. We're going to make sure that we list that out again, the assignment, and we're going to pin this up to the top. So here's all we're going to do. Today we're going to make a list of 30 qualities that we desire in our relationship, and then we're going to take one of those qualities each day for the rest of the month, and we're going to practice giving that very desire and applying that very desire and giving it to our spouse.
Yeah.
So if we're hoping to be served, we're going to serve instead of expecting or hoping to be served. If we want to feel appreciated, we're going to find ways to appreciate our spouse. So whatever those qualities are, we're going to pin that comment up to the top. If you take the challenge, by all means, list out a couple of the qualities so that everybody else who's listening in can see, oh yeah, I want that in my relationship too. Also, we'd love to connect with you, so go to marriedforapurpose.com. You can email us. You can sign up for our free words of encouragement.
on the site there, yeah. If you
On
scroll
the
down to
site?
the bottom of the page, there's a place for you to do that.
And if you're looking for more practical tools, we want to invite you to our membership where you can actually interact with us, ask your questions live. You'll find all kinds of information about that on our marriedforapurpose.com site. Other than that,
Yeah, in fact, we got a great guest coming up. Can I let the cat out of the bag?
you can let the cat
This
out
next
the bag.
Tuesday evening, 7, for those of you who are in the membership,
June 24th.
June 24th, we're going to have Dr. Gary Chapman on, author of the
Oh,
Five
I'm sorry,
Love
June
Languages.
23rd. That's the Tuesday, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
just get it right.
Oops.
Will you
I
frickin',
know.
please?
Oh, see how he is? No.
Anyway, Dr. Gary Chapman is going to be on. He's actually just released a new book, and so we're going to be talking about that and having a great conversation with him. So anyway, come join us if you're a member. If not, become a member. You'll be glad you did.
All right. God bless. Have a great day.